so many people will hold themselves back from giving 100% because there's an ego protection in giving 80% and telling yourself, I would have succeeded if I'd given 100%, but I chose not to.
Well, hello and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Sam Hind, and I am honored that you've chosen to spend this time with us today. In this episode, we're going to be talking all about mindset with one of the world's top experts in the space. Today, I had the privilege of chatting away with Elliot Roe, who is a leading expert in mindset optimization for high performers and is the world's #1 mindset coach for poker players. His poker clients have won over $250 million and nearly every major tournament title, including the World Series of Poker main event. Elliot's clientele also include Olympic medalists, UFC champions, Hollywood actors, business executives, and Wall Street traders. His unique mindset coaching system leverages the power of hypnotherapy to eliminate fears and break through mental roadblocks, allowing you to operate in a state of peak performance every single day. Well, today we had the privilege of having him on our podcast to talk about how to take you from where you are to where you want to be by looking at things like self-sabotage, fears, and much, much more. He also shares some exercises you can do right here and right now to eliminate some of those roadblocks. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to the interview. I hope you enjoy this episode. You will absolutely need paper and pen at the ready. So get yourself ready, get yourself comfortable, sit back and enjoy. Well, welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I am absolutely pumped for this interview. So welcome on in, Elliot. I am super excited to be chatting with you today. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Sam, thank you so much for having me on the show.
It is such an honor. And look, to be perfectly honest, this is one of my favorite topics of conversation. I know we're going to have a lot of fun talking about this today because I'm very, very passionate about mindset, as I know you are as well. And I really, truly believe that a lot of our hidden potential is locked up inside of our minds. So I know that I feel like this is going to be one of those podcast episodes where we're going to go for our normal time and we'll open up a whole can of worms and probably could go for, another 3 or 4 episodes. So we better jump on in, but let's just hear from you first, Elliot. Can you share a fun fact about you with our audience and a little bit about who you are and what you've been up to?
Yeah, so I guess fun fact for the last 15 years, I've been working in the high performance industry, and I've been working with everyone from Olympic athletes, Wall Street traders, CEOs of multinational companies, professional gamblers, even helping people in high pressure moments really be able to perform when it really matters and help them understand what it is that sets apart those who are sort of top 10 in the world and #1. I've worked with a number of people in different industries and sports and helped them to reach literally that #1 spot. And I found that the mindset difference is a really, really key point. Once you get to, everyone in the top 10, top 20 of any industry, any sport, they all have the basics down. They all know the fundamentals. They're all putting in a lot of work. But if they stop holding themselves back and we get rid of any self-sabotage, anxiety, and allow them to perform at their best in those moments, that's when we see someone really come ahead. And that's really been my life for the last 15 years.
And why this industry? Like, why? How do you move into this space? What was the catalyst for you?
It was a very, very strange catalyst for me. So I had a fear of flying. I was working in investments. So I'd worked in property investments and then solar energy investments. So completely different world.
Yes.
Had a fear of flying and went to a hypnotherapist, and she resolved it in an hour.
Wow.
And it was the way it was resolved that sort of blew my mind. So I went into this session very skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
We go through a form of guided meditation, which is like relaxation, which was the hypnotic induction and deepener. And then she started asking me about my emotions around flying and what I felt like. And it started bringing up memories from my past around the subject. And I had sort of memories of turbulence on planes and things. And then a memory came up of being at my grandfather's house, being shown a picture of a small plane and being told it killed his business partner. Um, so I suddenly understood why I'd been scared of flying forever.
Mm.
She then reframed and worked through that memory. And afterwards, I didn't have a fear of flying. And most interesting to me was the memory wasn't something I consciously remembered. So I didn't know
Yeah.
about it before I went in the office. And then when I spoke to my parents about it, they were like, yeah, you know that happened. So I had effectively a repressed memory
Mm.
explain a fear of flying where I've literally felt like it was life and death whenever I get on a plane,
Yes.
um, and go to flying's fine. There's something I can do. So it changed my life in terms of the way I could view the world. So I decided to learn hypnotherapy thinking it would be a fun hobby, and then started helping friends and families with fears, started working with some local golfers, and saw their scores change. And then one of my friends was working in the poker industry and said, hey, if you can help people under pressure, there are millions of dollars on the line. I think you should try and help some poker players. I went into professional poker, like helping poker players. I just started off just offering free sessions and saying, I think this can help. And my career in poker went extraordinarily well. So my clients have now won over $250 million. They've won all of the major events.
Wow.
I have a book in that area. I've worked with a lot of the best players in the world, and a number of them weren't the best players in the world before I started working with them. So it went extraordinarily well. And then from there, professional poker players often play poker with professional athletes and CEOs of companies and Wall Street traders. And my name started getting spread to business. So I started working with the CEOs of those companies and these professional athletes. And now, I guess I'm probably doing about 20% poker and about 80% of all of those other areas, from UFC fighters to Olympians, and as I say, predominantly business now.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it is all the problems are the same. It doesn't matter if it's a UFC fighter or a CEO of a company or a salesperson.
Yeah.
Everyone's a human, and the themes keep showing up.
So tell us about what those same problems are that you see across the board.
So certainly the self-sabotage. So a lot of people allow themselves to get to a certain level, and those levels are very different. So for some people, that's $20,000 a year, and for others, it might be $5 million a year. But it's still a level that they'll allow themselves to reach.
Yes.
And then they'll find a way of sabotaging anything above that level. So we'll find that, they'll gamble away their money or make bad investments, or they'll take their eye off their business once they reach a certain level, and they'll start coasting until things start going wrong, and then they'll start adjusting until they get back to that level again. So there's sort of a wealth thermostat that everyone seems to follow to some extent. There are a lot of anxiety issues, things like public speaking, making videos for social media. The number of people who've come to me where it's a nightmare situation for them to do their social media work for Facebook, Instagram, and such. Fear of failure and fear of success. So being worried about failing, so not trying.
Yep.
So many people will hold themselves back from giving 100% because there's an ego protection in giving 80% and telling yourself, I would have succeeded if I'd given 100%, but I chose not to.
Yep.
And this I see in every industry. So this like holding that little bit back so that you can tell yourself, I would have made it. It was my choice to fail, rather than failing for failing's sake. And then a fear of success that shows itself a lot of times is around, if I am truly successful, I'm going to leave my family and friends behind. They're going to judge me. They're not going to like me. There's going to be changes to the social dynamics at home. My dad is going to be uncomfortable if I make more money than he makes. Those sorts of things. So it's these patterns in different areas, but they're consistent themes where, especially with the people who are performing under extreme pressure, sometimes for millions of dollars.
Yeah.
This self-sabotage can hold someone back. It can be the reason the golfer misses the putt,
Yeah.
or that the poker player makes a bad decision at the table, or the businessman doesn't ask for the investment when he really needs the investment and instead leaves it too long and puts themselves in a situation where they're not getting the deal they would have got if they'd asked 3 months earlier. They were just too uncomfortable to look for the money.
Yep. So how much of this, because, I'm just, playing devil's advocate here. I know that some of our listeners might be going, I don't self-sabotage, or
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of success. You made mention at the start that some of the things, well, the reason that you're afraid of flying was actually based on something you weren't even consciously aware of. How does someone identify what it is that's holding them back if it's something that's subconscious? For example, self-sabotage. And this is something that I experienced without realizing I was experiencing it in the first couple of years of business. And I'm very familiar with that glass ceiling that we put on ourselves, because for me, that glass ceiling originally sat at $100,000 with our business.
That one is so standard.
Yeah.
Like that is like that. Yeah.
And I literally watched it. I would get to, and, this was before I didn't pay myself a wage. I was, busy paying for overheads and staff and things. And I would watch us get to this level. It was like I had this in my head, $100,000, $100,000. I just want to get past $100,000. And I would see the business just about get there. And then something had happened and it would all come crashing down. I'd lose a top client and it would all come crashing back down. And it just was like this cycle. It kept happening. And it was this glass ceiling. I remember ringing my coach at the time saying, what's going on here? And she said, you need to learn about your own patterns. And she sent me off to a learning that I did at the time, which was about understanding my own self-talk, my own self-sabotage. But if she said to me at the time, you're self-sabotaging, you've got to stop doing it, I would have gone, no, I'm not. I'm not doing this.
This is the world.
It's the world.
Yeah.
The world's doing this. It's not me. So how do you get someone, sorry, that was a very convoluted question there, but if someone doesn't actually recognize what's holding them back, they don't know if it's self-sabotage, they don't know if it's because they're afraid of success, for example, how do we identify those things?
Well, first I'll give sort of a very brief description of this. First, look at the patterns in your life. If something keeps happening, it's you. If you keep having the worst boyfriends in the world, it's you. If you keep having,
it's okay, stay listening, don't tune out.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and it's those situations. It's the fact that what we're looking for are patterns that are repeating.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, I never seem to quite make it. I always sabotage I always struggle with sales. Everyone always says no.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere in your business where you're seeing a repeating pattern, no one wants to invest in me. Okay, that's interesting. Why does no one want to invest in you? Those sorts of things. So that would say first, look over your life, look at the type of issues that you have, emotional issues. Like, when do the anxieties show? When does the frustration show? What happens in your relationships? And look for any repeating patterns in those situations.
Yep.
And take responsibility and the blame. It's never going to be 100% your fault, but if you're seeing something come back and come back and come back, there's something there and there's a lesson to be learned.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that as a first point. And then I'm going to talk through a really brief exercise that can give a good sort of background on this sort of idea as well. So if everyone gets a pen and paper, we'll come back to this section of the show later, and write down someone who's the top performer in your industry, or one of the top performers in your industry.
Mm-hmm.
So write down their name, make a decision, or at least have an idea of the average of the top performers, and write down all of the things that they do that makes them successful.
Mm-hmm.
So spend 2 minutes doing that. And, if people are listening to this now, start writing that list now. Mm-hmm. So how do they look after themselves? How do they deal with potential clients? How do they deal with staff? How do they deal with their downline? What sort of coaching do they get? How are they physically fit? Do they look after themselves? Do they how's their sleep? Just all of the things you believe the absolute top performers are doing. Are they doing public speaking? Are they making social media videos? And then build out this comprehensive list. and put a tick next to all of the ones you're doing as well, and a cross next to the ones you're not. So what we're building here is an understanding of what's a mindset issue rather than knowledge-based issue.
Okay.
So if you have a lot of crosses, then more knowledge isn't going to help you at the moment because you already know what to do, but you're choosing not to do it. And this is where I say, this is the difference between, do I need a technical coach, a strategic coach, or do I need a mindset coach? If you have a tick next to everything on that list, then that means you believe you're doing all of the things the best in the industry are doing, and you need a strategic coach to help you understand what you're missing, because there's some knowledge missing there that you just don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. If you have lots of crosses, then you know what to do, but you're choosing not to do it. And that's where that's a mindset issue.
Yep.
Because you know what to do. So,
yep.
so that's where that starts to become, okay, so why aren't you doing it? Mm-hmm. So then go through that list. So the list of crosses, if you've got some, and what feels the most uncomfortable for you to do. Is it the public speaking? Mm-hmm. Is it the getting to the gym? Is it the firing the member of staff who you know you should have fired months ago? Like, whatever it is. That sensation, so that physical sickness you might feel in your stomach, or it feels like there's a force field holding me back, or the pressure you feel in your chest as you thought of going on stage and speaking, or whatever it might be, that's the starting point for the hypnotherapy work that I do and the mindset work. Because we know there's an emotional block that's linked to something. Like, there's no reason for it to be particularly terrifying to speak on stage or to fire a member of staff or to make the sales call or whatever it would be. So you're bringing that to your business. And this is the sort of work where we can then dig into, okay, what memories are connected to this? What comes up in your past that starts to explain this? And then we reframe them, because in that state, we can reframe memories. So, it brings up you being bullied at 7 years old. For 7-year-old you, being punched was horrifically scary and life and death.
Yeah.
For 35-year-old you, it's two 7-year-olds having a fight. So we can overcome these emotions with understanding and love, and that you always got through everything that you had a fear of, because you're here today, so you got through it. And we can reframe and remove the triggers from those memories, so that when the moments come up in our life when we feel bullied, and it used to make us have an anger response or an anxiety response, instead it's just something that you can deal with.
Yep.
And it's that for those issues. So that's the way I would say, like, to start to understand what your issue is, look at those gaps and what's most uncomfortable. And it's always the uncomfortable thing. That's the thing.
Yep. So a couple of things here. First of all, you've made mention about hypnotherapy, and that this was what helped you. It was helped you identify what it was that was getting in the way, and then to rewire that thinking. What about, is it possible for somebody to overcome this, to identify this and or overcome this without having to go and see a hypnotherapist? Are there some steps, things people can do from home?
You can definitely run through this in a manual way. So when you get to that moment in that exercise, you can say, okay, that's making me feel sick. What else in my life has made me feel that way? And start writing out a list of those memories, and try and get an idea of it. And then, when the teacher said that I was a terrible child and I'd never amount to anything, was that because I was a terrible child, or was that because Mrs. Smith was having a bad day? Right? And start to reframe the reality of the situation. That's the teacher doing their job badly. That's not a reflection of who you are. But so many children take that label and they then believe that they're just a bad kid.
Yep.
And then they run with that moving forwards. So you can do this working through these exercises yourself. The difference is, with hypnotherapy, we're in the subconscious mind. And there are a few modalities that are subconscious based rather than conscious based modalities. So EMDR is another one, EFT to some extent, NLP, some versions of NLP. So I would look for a subconscious modality to do this, because with subconscious modalities, instead of being in the Windows system of the computer, you're in the DOS programming behind it.
Yep.
So we're working on what's making the Windows run. And as in my case, I wouldn't have been able to come to that memory on my own because I wasn't even aware of it.
Yeah.
It only came up because I was in that trance-like state. There's no magic to hypnotherapy. It's not like the stage shows, but you do have a different kind of understanding in that state where it does bring up things from the subconscious. And the other thing to be aware of is when you try and do work, you can do good work on your own, but when you're working on your own, a lot of the time you can't see your own blind spots and you try very hard to hide them from
Yeah.
yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you come up with the rationality of it is just the world. It's not my fault. It is just a world that's making this happen.
Yeah.
And having a third party there, a coach of some kind, whether a hypnotherapist or just a coach, to say, no, reality check, this is not the world. This is something that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And until you take responsibility, it's just not going to change. So that's something that I would say I'm a very big advocate of coaching. I currently, my wife calls me a princess about my self-care routine. I have like a personal trainer 5 days a week, a massage for 2 hours a week. I do assisted stretching. I have my own coach every 2 weeks. I have a separate business coach. I go to someone else for energy work. I've had a sleep coach in the past. I literally try and tick all of the boxes because this is what I'm selling, and I want to be able to perform at the highest level of my clients for my clients. But also, I've seen what genuinely the highest performers in the world do, and then I just copy what they do.
And this is the thing, it's not a secret, is it, right? Like the recipe is right there in front of us.
Yeah, it's literally like, okay, all of these CEOs and professional athletes and Wall Street traders, all of them have a plethora of people helping them and coaches, and they've got fitness trainers in place, and they massage for stress. Like, okay, I'm going to copy all of that.
Yep.
Because these aren't stupid people.
Yes.
And I've found it's, I make much more money back on being able to perform better than these people cost me. So that's why I do that.
You're on that because I'm like you, I'm a huge advocate for coaches, and particularly I'm a huge advocate for coaches that stretch me both financially but also in keeping me accountable. But I say that because the very first coach I ever had was actually a really close friend of mine, and she said, I don't need to charge you to coach you. She said, I'm going to, and I'm going to make it hurt because I know that if I do that, you're going to do the work. Whereas if I do this cheap or for free and I make this comfortable, then you don't have the incentive to earn the money back and to do what I'm telling you to do. And so from that day on, I've always had a coach, but I've always made sure it was someone that I could only just, if in some cases I couldn't afford, because I absolutely 100% had to do everything they told me to do, no questions asked, because I couldn't afford not to.
Created that pressure for you. Yeah.
But I do want to ask the question though, like with all of these things, Elliot, if someone's listening to this right now and they're like, I can't afford a masseuse and I can't afford a personal trainer and I can't afford to do this or that, for someone who's in that stage right now, and I'm not suggesting, by the way, because I know there's a balance between making good financial decisions and really bad financial decisions. So I'm not suggesting that people need to go and jump and do things they can't afford to do. But what process would you encourage for those people?
So certainly that's changed in my life as I've become more successful in my career in terms of the amount of coaching. And clearly what I'm doing now, my wife's right. I'm being a princess. It's
I like this woman.
There's a level. It's working for me. Yeah. So the way that I explain, so one, like we have a number of coaches at different price levels because this is a reality.
Yeah.
You've got to be sure that you can make a return. And the way that I judge it with clients, if a client's right for me, is can they genuinely make a 10x return on the coaching I'm going to give them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So if someone's in a situation where I can genuinely see them making these adjustments, they do have the potential to be making the money that's a 10x return.
Yep.
It should be a no-brainer purchase for them to work with me as a coach.
Yep.
Because it has to work. If it works 1 time out of 10, it's free. And if it were, I would be hoping we're hitting those sorts of numbers, 7, 8 times out of 10.
Yep. And
then that's a massive return for anybody.
Yep.
If I don't believe a client can make a 10x return in a year on the money I'm charging them, I just won't work with them.
Yeah.
And I don't give people that opportunity. We have that conversation. And if it's like, hey, like if things go really well, I can make X. then I say, hey, that's why I've got coaches from, $200 an hour up.
Yep.
Because there's someone who you can make a 10x return
Yes.
from working with.
Yeah.
And that's the way I recommend it. And that's just my gut instinct. That's just how I feel about it. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but
But
that's
this
how I
is
run my business.
something that that's what makes a good coach from, and someone who's integral as well. But from the person being coached, from that point of view, I mean, this is still something you can apply the other way around. Can I make a return on that investment? And will I make a return on that investment? Because am I or am I not going to do the work?
Well, one, if you're hiring a coach, you've got to be believing that you're going to do the work.
Yes.
Like just as a foot, like, because it's a waste of the coach's time. It's a waste of your time.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be willing to do the work. Otherwise you're just wasting everybody's time the whole way through.
Yep.
Sorry, the sun is
we were just talking
chasing
about
me around the room.
saying like
Yeah,
podcast sun. Yeah.
Afternoon sun.
I've got to actually tell you a funny story on that really quickly. I was doing a podcast one day, Elliot, and I was telling you about my window. The sun was streaming through, and I'm talking to the client, but I had to kind of keep moving, the guest. I had to keep moving across the screen as the sun was beaming through, and it was literally so bright I couldn't see anything, and it was like this line down my face. So I'm sort of doing this. By the time we got to the end of the episode, I was right on the edge of the screen. And I actually had to wrap it up because I couldn't go any further. And I sent this because I've got this rule. One of the ways I get through doing lives, doing keynotes, doing podcasts, doing all of those things, I self-sabotage by being my own biggest critic. I know I'm alone in that, and no one else in the world does that, right?
It's only you, Sam.
It's only me. So I worked out the thing I need to do is just don't watch myself. I never look at anything back. I never watch myself on a recording. And if I do a recording, I hit go. I don't watch it and check it and decide, because I'll record it 100 times and then ditch every single one of them. Yeah. So this episode was like no other. I sent it straight to my editing team and I didn't ever look at it again. I get a message after it goes live from another friend of mine in the industry, and she goes, "That was the most hilarious podcast episode I've ever seen." I was like, "Why? What happened?" She goes, "Your editing team put a cartoon hat on your head, sweat drips down your face, and kept putting little captions up like thought bubbles coming from your head going, 'Man, it's getting hot in here.'" And so as I'm moving across the screen, they're having heaps of fun with this, actually turning it into this comical podcast episode around Sam fighting the sun. So anyway, we could do this to you in this episode if we wanted.
Well, yeah, add some animation.
Animation. Sorry, I'm gonna let you keep going. That was a little distraction there.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, I think we're saying about how someone would decide. Was that right? How someone would decide what they were investing?
Yeah, like if you were looking at getting a coach, how do you decide on the right? Like, is this a good business investment for me to? And coaching of any sort, whether or not it's online training, webinar, training, membership, coach, whatever that might be, how do they make a good business decision? Because it's got to stretch them financially, but then
there has to be some level of, as you say, a pain. The reality is, if you give out a free video, people don't watch a free video most of the time, and they certainly don't take action on it.
Yeah.
So there has to be skin in the game for any kind of coaching to work.
Yeah.
In terms of looking at the return on investment, I would look at what appears in the industry making. Has this person got pedigree? Do they have testimonials? Have they shown that they can take people to the level that I'm looking to reach?
Yep.
And is that level some kind of multiple on the return of money I'm paying for the coaching?
Yep.
And as I say, for whatever reason, I've picked 10. That just seemed like the right sort of level for me.
Yep.
I don't know that it necessarily has to be 10, but I would think it would have to be a multiple. So it has to be something where you believe if you follow through and you reach that next step in the thing that you're doing, you're making multiples of the money you've invested in the coaching, and that the coaching has been, say, painful enough or enough to keep your attention and ensure that you're going to follow through on the things that you're deciding to do.
Yep.
And like you said, if it's a case of you're questioning whether you're going to listen to the coach and do the work, that's something to overcome before you pay for a coach.
Yep.
Unless that's what the coaching is for.
Yeah. Elliot, what's the difference? Because you mentioned before that $100,000 is like a common barrier.
Yeah.
What is the difference between an entrepreneur that's earning $100,000 a year and an entrepreneur that's earning $1 million a year in mindset?
Very little. Very, very little. So a lot of the time, those numbers, it's so often correlated to what a rich person was when they were growing up. So if you're in an area where the rich people down the street who everyone's jealous of are making $100,000 a year, $100,000 a year might be very difficult for you to overcome. And if the rich people were making $1 million a year, you might find $1 million a year is very difficult to overcome.
Yeah.
But that's one of the themes that I've seen over and over again. But I would say with almost everything, there's not huge mindset differences. There's not actually huge differences between most of what people are doing. To have a functioning business, you have to be doing 85% of the work, because otherwise you have no business.
Yep.
All of the money, the big money is made by the top 5%. And then pretty decent money is made by, the gap in between. So that extra 10% in between. But you've just got to decide, am I willing to do what the top 5% are doing and to set myself apart? And oftentimes that's not actually a huge amount of extra hours, but it is extra hours. It's not a huge amount of extra consistency, but it is extra consistency. And it's really making sure you're honest with yourself in all cases, that you're going to be putting yourself in that top 5% of whatever you're doing. But it's often not an extreme amount of extra work. It's just some extra work, on a consistent basis, and being willing to pull the trigger and do the scary thing.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about mindset as far as self-sabotage and fear, etc., and hypnotherapy and the benefits of that. What about priming? Because one of the things that we talk about a lot within our own community is mindset and shifting. We can wake up having had, crazy example of this. I woke up the other day having had a bad dream, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, that dream had infiltrated my mood when I woke up. And it was kind of like the separation between dream and reality wasn't quite there. And I'd had a little argument with my husband. This happens every so often. In the dream, I'd had an argument with my husband. And I woke up and I was still annoyed with him. And he was like, what did I do? I'm like, you don't remember? And then I realized, of course, he doesn't remember because he didn't actually do it. And so I was like, whoa, I'm going to have to reset myself here just for a little minute. Now, that's a really crazy example, but we can do this. Like, you can have some bad sales calls one day, wake up the next day and you're like, I'm going to carry, I call it, wiping off the dust. Like, you can carry the dust into the next day or into the next opportunity or the next conversation if you're bringing that in. But sometimes I know it can be really hard for people to reset their mindset. What are some of the strategies you would give to help somebody to shift their mindset if they're feeling like they're in a bit of a funk for whatever reason?
Okay, so when it comes to priming, what we're looking at is state change. So we're going from, this state of stress or anger in your case, or anxiety, and then looking to switch. So, we have an app, Prime Mind, which is suggestion audios of hypnotherapy. So unlike the regression work, which is looking at your past, working through your memories, this is state change. So this is getting to that deep, relaxed, meditative state, and then following suggestions that then change your emotional response. So it'd be for confidence, for sales. It might be to help you sleep or let go of anxiety. But effectively, what you're looking to do is teach yourself to be able to switch between the different versions of yourself. At any time, there's the professional you, there's the fun you, there's the anxious you, there's the angry you. And it's just a version of yourself. And through those types of methods, so priming being one, you can invest, say, 10 minutes of time and you can switch into that different version. So we have like start your day audios or sales or public speaking, where you put yourself into that mindset and remember what it feels like to be living that version of yourself. And as you do that, it tends to let go of, perhaps the dreams of the night before, in your case, or just the bad run that you're feeling. Because you can get negative, as you say. If you've had 5 rejections in a row, sometimes it's worth having a reset. There are other things you can do as well. So I know anyone who's been to a Tony Robbins event will have done a lot of dancing,
Yeah.
clapping, high energy music.
Mhm.
Meditation works for some people. Mantras work for other people. So it's just a case of something that's a state shift.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, by running through one of those programs, you can put yourself back into the professional you, which is obviously, when we're talking from a business perspective, what we're looking for in those moments.
Yep. So, what's the difference between a state change versus what we've been talking about, which is shifting your belief system, I suppose?
So when you're looking at state change, you're looking to change the way that you feel right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, I'm feeling anxious. You invest that time and energy, so perhaps listening to one of those audios, to make you feel good in this moment. But it doesn't remove the trigger that's there from the past that brought up those anxious feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So the sort of the priming or the suggestion based work is typically a short-term fix. So I describe it as it's like having a bandage on a wound.
Yep.
So, hey, I've got a big sales meeting. You're not going to do a load of deep therapy work just before you sell.
Yep.
It's not practical. But if you can listen to this for 10 minutes, you can get yourself hyped, you can get your confidence back, and you can do the sales meeting.
Yep.
Great. But then tomorrow, I wouldn't expect you to be feeling that same way again.
Yep.
You'd have to go through that process again.
Okay.
With the regression-based work, we're looking for the root cause issues and resolving them.
Yep.
So that's more like healing the wound
Mm-hmm.
inside rather than a bandage.
Yep.
And you might do both. You might try and work on the wound and then listen to the audios and set yourself up with the priming. But that's the difference between those two things. There's a state change is short term, but very effective. And then the deeper work is the fixing the root causes and making the internal shifts in the way you view reality.
Okay. So, given that most of our audience are people with direct selling businesses, so, generally speaking, fairly small businesses that they're running from home, lots of mums and dads, what is the sort of thing that's going to help them the most right now? So they're recognizing, look, this is where I want to go. This is, what perhaps they know what's holding them back, or at this point they're not quite sure, but they know something is. What would be some of the strategies you would give them right now to help them get from where they currently are to closer to where they want to be, or where they want to be?
So I'd run through that exercise that we did earlier.
Yep.
Take that really seriously. Invest half an hour in that. Mm-hmm. In really working out where the gaps are. Once the second thing I would do is, be honest with yourself. Are you doing the top 5% of the work that we were also discussing? So are you putting yourself in a situation where you truly deserve to be making the money when the other people don't? Mm-hmm. So you want to honestly believe 95% of your industry are doing less than you.
Yep.
And can you honestly believe that? So there'll be the two starting points. When it comes to the inner work, the app that I mentioned, Prime Mind, we have a section on building your business, and there's, I think, 5 or 6 audios to listen to with different common issues that come up. But again, that's the suggestion work.
Yep. I'm
not expecting that to solve the root cause issues. I'm expecting it to make your days better and help you perform better on a day-to-day basis. And then at some point, as I say, working with a more affordable coach and the sort of, the coaches like yourself, Sam, in your courses with, understanding the social media, the actual strategy behind it as well. Mm-hmm. And what are the gaps missing? What don't I understand about this industry, and where can I invest to get those gaps filled? Because as I was saying before, it's look at what the top people of their industry are making and look at how they got there and who they worked with and how that works. And and it's worth making that investment at some point. But I would really say, be honest with yourself. Are 95% of people doing less than you? That's where you always want to be in any industry.
Yep.
And that it's tough, but that's how people become successful.
Yep. I love it. That's awesome. And so let's just come back to Prime Mind for a sec, because this is an amazing app. It's, we've actually, I mentioned to you that we've got our top tier program is our Rise Up Inner Circle. And in that group, I've got some incredible, beautiful entrepreneurs, business owners that I am mentoring twice a week, every week. And within that group, lots of us do priming of various different descriptions, which kicks us off, kicks off our day well. And one of the apps that's the favorite is Prime Mind, because they've recognized it's a really great way to shift that mindset, particularly if you recognize, hey, I'm in a bit of a funk right now and I'm carrying some dust into my day or into my meetings or into my calls, and I really need to wipe it off. What do I need to do? So if any of our listeners right now are wondering, what is this app? How can I get access to it? Can you tell us a little bit about how they can get it? We will put some links, by the way, in the show notes, but can you tell them a bit about how they can get to it? And of course, what is going to be relevant for them in this industry, because you do have a section in there that is helpful for our
Yeah.
listeners.
So you can find it. I mean, the best way to find it, we'll give you guys a discount code. So I'd say definitely go to the show notes, because it's going to be cheaper for you than if you buy it in the App Store.
Yep.
So the show notes will be the best place. But we're on, the Apple Store. We're on Google Play. It's called Prime Mind. Or primemind.com. But as I say, the links will have a discount that we pass to Sam. And yeah, we built out some specific audios because around things that we know people in the industry were struggling with. So social media was one of them. Making videos is one of the audios in that section.
So if this is something they're struggling with, if they're like, I am just really struggling with doing videos on social media, you've actually got a recording in there to help them with that.
For that. Yeah, to listen to with that discomfort. So that's one of them. Sales, dealing with rejection. You're making sure that you're in that position with sales that you can just reload, get back out there, sort of confidence in yourself as a business person. And then there's a winner's mindset course. There are confidence courses, which I think for your industry is extraordinarily important.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
And then there's also some public speaking courses there. Again, this is one of the things that so many people hold themselves back in their jobs. Because they just don't want to step on stage. And the truth is, that's how you get the most people in one go. Whether it's a stage like this, this is a stage to some extent. We're on a podcast, or a live, or an online training, or, in a hall in front of 1,000 people. Being willing to stand up and make yourself known and become an expert in the field. That's what those top 5% of people who are making all the money.
Yeah.
And the best the best way of working out is think about what all of the worst, hardest things feel like in your industry. And that's usually where you'll find the gaps that other people aren't doing it.
Yep.
So anything that makes you cringe, anything that seems super tough, really uncomfortable, that's usually where sort of the biggest up levels can be made.
Yep. Awesome. So just coming back to priming, why is priming your mind so important for success if you are running a business?
Well, I think, as you described earlier, some of the time you're starting the day with a bad mindset and you're not going to be productive. And effectively what this allows you to do is have a productive day when you were going to have a wasted day. And you're investing, as I say, 10, 15 minutes of time to turn your day around and making the next 8 hours of work more effective.
Yep.
So it's just like an insurance policy on your mood to be more of a professional, so that you're going to be more efficient in your day and then get a higher return on the time that you've spent.
Yeah. And it's not just your work, is it? I mean, we're also talking family. We're talking how you show up for your friends, how you show up for your loved ones as well. We've got the ability to, and I hate using the word control, but we do have the ability to take the reins back, if you like, of where our mood is at, where our mindset is at. I said to you before, we can't control what the world does to us, but we can control how we respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when your partner's in a bad mood, some of us maybe sometimes feel like, we want to be in a bad mood back to show them.
Never.
And we can also never, yeah. And we can also make the decision to just be kind. And one of those choices will probably make the day better for both people. And these are the sorts of choices we're making throughout the day. And, that's a very obvious one.
Yeah.
But, there's the way we deal with clients, the way we deal with complaints. Like,
Yeah. It's a good one.
complaints will come in your
Yep.
business. Are you going to take them personally and get aggressive? Or are you going to take it as useful feedback that this particular person struggled with one part of what you're offering?
Yep.
And it's trying to remove as much as possible, remove the ego and the hurt and the pain and the insecurity, and just be flowing in life.
Yep.
And all of these different methods can help you reach that state of better flow.
Yep. Oh, I love that. So good. Look, like I said, Elliot, I think I could talk to you about this for hours because I really love this topic. I think there is so much importance to this, and your mindset is such a huge part. You've said there's not a big difference between those people who earn 100,000 and those that earn $1 million. For every one of you that's listening right now, you've got everything that you need. You've got all of the things that you need around you. It's not a matter of your ability, but it is a matter of your ability to manage your mind, essentially. Because you've got the resources around that you need. You can go get the knowledge you need if you need it. But the question is, are you managing your thought process around that? I just want to ask you one more quick question here, because I feel like this is becoming a word, or I guess a thing that's becoming more widely recognized as a legitimate, tool. But it's also still got some woo-woo about it, and that is manifesting.
Right.
Do you want to just, because I haven't spoken to you about this before, but so I'm putting myself out on a limb here, but do you want to just share with us what you feel about manifesting and whether or not this is something that is a thing, is a helpful thing, and and if so, does the tool that you have here help people with this?
Yeah, so I see manifestation. I've got sort of two views on it. I don't believe you can think yourself to success without putting in the work.
Yeah.
Like, however, I've seen too much. I mean, I've seen too much strange stuff happen for people who have really visualized extraordinarily outsized outcomes, and they've hit those extraordinarily outsized outcomes.
Yep.
By really working hard on visualizing this, believing it can happen, vision boards, all of those sorts of things.
Yep.
I'm talking about like people becoming number one at the world at something. And, I've worked with large numbers of people who've become number one, and there's 8 billion people. And I shouldn't know lots and lots of people who've become number one in the world. Like, just on the way maths works, like I shouldn't know
the
loads
probability
of them.
is pretty small.
Yeah, it's like it starts. So I would certainly say, but I've never seen someone just manifest and not do the work and have the success.
Yeah.
So the way I would view it is, I believe there's something about showing your subconscious that this is something that you want and is possible, and repeatedly doing that until your subconscious is working on your side to trying to help you get there.
Yeah, it's a good way of explaining it. Yeah.
Yeah, so like the resistance is gone. It helps get rid of some of that resistance I've been talking about, the self-sabotage, the fear of failure.
Doesn't seem impossible anymore because we've seen it so many times. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I think that that's what's going on. So I've seen it be very valuable, and visualization is an extraordinary tool when it comes to these things. I mean, I've had quite extraordinary experiences watching this stuff over the years that sound quite unbelievable. So I won't even share them on a podcast. But but again, I have seen people try and use manifestation and then not do any of the work.
Yeah.
And I see that as procrastination. Yeah. So I think it's a useful tool in addition, but it's a useful tool in addition.
Yes.
Not the everything. You have to do the work.
Yeah, it's a really good point that you bring up. And, I've got to admit, I was that person many years ago that was like, if you told me manifestation was a thing, I would have said to you, you're crazy, because I was a just work harder to get ahead type of a person. But what I have seen in more recent years is the power, and me personally, I have seen this in my own life, but the power of showing yourself, like what you said, showing yourself that this is not an impossibility, but rather making it seem reachable, tangible, possible. because it does limit the amount that you self-sabotage it. It reduces the barrier of fear of success, because what you're doing is you're taking away the fear of what if I get there, what if I do that. And I know that sounds funny, but it's an actual real thing of, if I get to that level, if that happens, will I alienate with my friends, or will I be comfortable, or will I be happy, or will I still be liked, or, what am I going to come up against? And so when you're manifesting or visualizing, for me, I found what it's actually doing is it's removing the barrier of fear, because I'm starting to see it as a possibility. So I'm starting to see what the world around me is going to look like in that scenario, and it becomes less scary. So I'm more likely to do the work. I'm less likely to sabotage to get there, because it's no longer something I'm afraid of. That's been my own personal experience of it. But like you said, and I think this is really important, it's only ever worked when in conjunction with that visualization is the strategy to get there too.
Yeah.
Did I explain that?
That's almost exactly my views.
Okay. So like, for
It,
example, like vision boards are a
yeah,
fun, great thing to do. And I'm an advocate for them, but not if it's the only thing you're doing, right? So not if you
yeah,
don't actually then have next to it the strategy to get from here to there, and the daily action steps, etc.
exactly. They're a piece of a puzzle. But again, with the number of people I've spoken to over the years who have got everything they put on their vision board is weird.
Yeah.
Like it's bizarrely correlated. But these are all people who've done all of the work as
Yeah.
well. So I think it's a case of, you can shape your life and you can give yourself a direction and create that through these things. But make sure that it's not a tool for procrastination and
Yeah.
excuses.
Yeah.
Like, hey, well, I'm manifesting every day, but it's not working.
Yeah. I've
It's
got a
like,
picture of the car I want on my fridge,
oh
and
my
why haven't
God.
I got
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been there for 3 years.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, look, Elliot, I think, again, so much stuff in all of this. I love the Primed Mind app. I am a big fan. So we're going to put the
Oh,
link
thank
with
you.
the discount code, of course, below in the show notes. Please go in, check that out, guys. Remember that with any of this stuff, whether it is, we've got lots of our members that are listening in. You guys understand, because we talk about this a lot, the importance of investing in yourself. And it is the best investment you'll ever make. But if you're not willing to invest in you, why would anyone else? And this is the thing. If you're wanting people to spend money with you, join your business, but you're not willing to spend money on you for your growth, and that's going to look like what it needs to look like for you, by the way. I'm not suggesting how you spend that money, but I am suggesting that investing in an area that is important for your growth is really important. And I learned this lesson very early on. I just want to encourage you. It is not the worst investment. It's the best one you can make. So the question is, what are you doing right now to take care of you as far as your growth is concerned? And where are you spending money that creates a bit of pain, that forces you to do the work that you need to do? It's why, and Elliot, you're the same with this app. Like, it's not free because people won't use it if it's free. And it's the same with a lot of our memberships. We don't do much for free anymore, because when we do, people don't show up, and we're here to create change like you are. So, I just, want to thank you for what you do. I think it's really awesome, and encourage our listeners, check it out. I think it's really
Well,
valuable.
I say thank you so much for having me come speak to the community. I hope it's been useful, and it sort of fits, all of these different mindset work things. But
Absolutely.
I have seen that, in this industry specifically, people just it can be just the mindset that's holding them back.
Yep.
And so, do the work, put in the effort, as you say, make the investment, and then make the change, and things can be extraordinarily different.
I love it. Now, just really quickly, I do have 4 fun questions for you I want to ask.
Okay.
My favorite questions. The first one is this. What is your favorite book for us to add to our accelerator book list?
Okay, so the best one on this topic, I think, is called Mindset by Carol Dweck. It's fixed and growth mindsets. It's extraordinarily powerful for people who are holding themselves back. So that would be my book recommendation.
I love it. And if you could have a superpower, any superpower, what would that be and why?
So I think it would be to be able to show people the life they could be living if they did the tough things.
Ooh, that's a
And
good one.
I think it would just be such a fun superpower
I
to
think
be
it'd
able
be
to
a
be like,
game changer.
hey,
Can you
yeah,
imagine if
like, hey,
people were
I'm
like, hang on, you're telling me that this could be a reality? Like I could actually do that? Yes, you could.
well, it's like if you could show someone, what would 10 years look like if they hit the gym and they did the work and they got the good night's sleep
Oh
and
my goodness.
I just think that would be such a cool
I hope you
superpower to
get
have.
that
I think
superpower. Can you come
you
visit me
never
if you
know.
do? Please come see me. I think there would be never a
Yeah.
question again about will I or won't I. It would just be like everything would become a must, right? Because you're like, I want
Yeah.
that health. I want that body. I want that life. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's now
So
my new favorite
that's
superpower answer.
my fun superpower I thought about.
Okay, I've heard some good ones, but that's going to be the best one, I
Yeah.
think. Elliot, what's your favorite quote?
Who dares wins.
Oh, good one. I love it. Very good. Very good. And last but not least, if you could go back in time and whisper one thing to your past self, what would that be?
I want to say the buy Bitcoin one, but I think that because
I said, for me, it would have been buy shares in Zoom. Zoom, buy shares,
oh right, yeah,
Zoom.
similar,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think it's just like enjoy the journey.
Yep.
Like everything. I don't know if it's the same for you, but like the vast number of things that we worry about, certainly when we're younger in our teens and 20s and things, none of it is important looking back. And I'm sure when I'm in my 60s, the stuff I'm worrying about in my 40s is probably not going to look important either.
No.
And I think just enjoying the journey and accepting that, the tough days are a part of the journey and we've all had them and we go through phases, of it being good and bad and good and bad. But I think if we can focus on it's just for the joy of the journey, there is no happy ending.
Yeah.
It's just the journey's the fun bit.
Yep.
That would be my message.
Yes, I love that. That's beautiful. Great way to end this episode too. So thank you again so much, Elliot, for joining us. The amazing Elliot Roe. Really appreciate you and all that you do. And of course, all of those links and everything are going to be down in the show notes for people to come check out. But we really appreciate you spending your time with our audience today and sharing some of these strategies. So thanks again.
Thank you so much.
And thanks as well, of course, to our beautiful listeners. It's great to have you with us again today. Please make sure that you do subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes. And if you love this one and you found it helpful, please share it with a friend, of course. But we will see you on the podcast again next week. That's it from us. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.